for Schindler. Has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to a pint-sized preview sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing on Town's opponents next season. And this episode's team is Burnley. I got the lowdown on Burnley from the podcast Turfcast, and here is what they had to say.
Hi everyone, my name is Joe. I'm from Burnley Podcast and YouTube channel Turfcast Podcast. If you want to give us a follow, you can. It's at Turfcast Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course YouTube. And if you want to give me a follow, you can. It's just at Joe Tom Red on Twitter. I'm just here to give you my thoughts and opinions on, ahead of this championship season, really, on how Burnley will get on in the championship for the first time in 7 years, I think it is. It's been a while anyway, I can tell you that much. I'm looking forward to it, to be honest. It's the Premier League got a bit stale. I'm not one of them that's like, I'm glad we've gone down. I'm not glad we've gone down. But the Premier League had gone a bit stale. I just weren't enjoying it anymore. That may have been the style of play. But I just wasn't. I went on 2 away games last season, whereas, the previous seasons I'd be going on about 10 minimum, more than that in some cases. I just got a bit bored of it. There's a lot of Northwest and sort of like West Yorkshire teams involved. Obviously, I'm going to Huddersfield on the opening night. So I'm excited for all these sort of like away days and stuff that I can get on, and hopefully a successful season, because finishing 17th it is success for a club like Burnley and of course Huddersfield, but it isn't something that's enjoyable success, is it? But anyway, what could go well for Burnley? Well, we could bounce straight back up. Let's be honest. I think we'll be there or thereabouts. Do I think we'll bounce straight back up? That's a different question. But I think we'll be there or thereabouts. The problem is, for me, I think we'll start slowly, because the entire mentality of the team has changed, the entire style of play. We've lost 10 players, brought 8 in so far. More could leave, more could be coming in. That's going to take time to gel, isn't it? I think we'll do similar to what you boys did, but not to that extreme. Obviously, when you got relegated from the Premier League, you had a poor season the first season. I think I remember checking the league table at one point, because I've got a friend who's an Huddersfield fan and seen you in 21st. So I'm like, bloody hell, what's going on here? You could go down again. Obviously, you didn't. But then you kicked on the season after. I think that could be something we do. Not that extreme. I don't think we'll be 21st and stuff in this season, but who knows? We could be 12th and stuff like that. But I do think we'll start slowly, because the entire, like I said, because we brought in so many new players, lost so many players, changing the entire way that we play. Like, we're not big strong defenders now who's going to kick 10 bells out here, which wasn't necessarily always true, but that was the label that we had. Now it's going to be a case of more slow possession play, build up, a narrow playing field rather than width. So it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And that's where it brings me nicely into the next question. What could go wrong? I think it's that slow start. I'm adamant we're going to start slowly, which is good news for you, obviously, playing you on the opening day. And I think the fans could get a bit restless. That is my main worry, because we've been in the Premier League for so long, and then obviously you're relegated into the Championship, which is obviously the league below. And then if you start badly in that one, after seeing, as play badly for 2 seasons now, if we start poorly again, because the only saving grace when you get relegated is, oh, well, at least we might do well next year. We might actually see some wins. So if we're not winning games and we're not playing well, apologies, my camera's just frozen, it does that. Then I do worry that the fans could get on the managers back and the players back. And that's my worry, that there could be too much pressure from the fans, where the board ends up acting too quickly. I don't think they will. I think they'll stick by Vincent, and I think they need to. I think there's going to be a point this season where there's going to be a bit of pressure from the fans, which I won't agree with. But the board will need to stand strong, especially considering he's got, I think it's a 3-4 year contract. I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you have the right manager? That again brings me nicely onto that next question. I think so. I think I was annoyed at the label that Burnley had from being in the Premier League for so long, mainly from the top 6 fans that are from America, China, whatever, Africa, who don't watch football properly. They just go on Twitter, slag other teams off, see that Mark Goldbridge has slagged Burnley off and said all they do is kick 10 bells out, and just copied him. So I didn't like this label that we had of just a long ball team who's going to bully you and kick 10 bells out here. I didn't like that. So I'm happy that we're going down this new route. It's just going to take time. It's just going to take time for us to gel. It's going to take time for this new ethos and this new mentality to breathe throughout the entire club. Like, Dash had been here for nearly 10 years. Like, everything about him, about his personality was embedded into the club. So it's going to take time to get used to a different style, a different manager at the helm, a different way of playing. So I do think we've got the right manager to do that, to change everything, because he's a little bit inexperienced, obviously. He's only had one previous job, but he's got a winning pedigree from his playing days. He's got, people are going to want to play for him. He's got pull, is what I'm trying to say. People are going to want to play for him. We've attracted some decent young players, you know what I mean? And a lot of them have said, oh, yeah, as soon as Vincent Kompany was interested in me, I wanted to play for a manager like that or a person like that. He's a winner. So he's got the pull. So I think he's going to help with that pull, and with the fact that he's got a completely different outlook on football than Dyche. He's going to help us completely change who we are. I do worry about his inexperience a little bit. But it's one of them. He can learn on the job. Dyche was inexperienced when he came in, and look how well that ended out. He'd only had one previous job, and again, he started slowly. He did start slowly. There was some rumours. I think it was December in his first season or November in his first season that he might be getting sacked. Obviously, that never happened, and the rest is history. That brings me on nicely. I know I've just mentioned inexperienced stuff, and you've mentioned transfer business, and I mentioned people coming in and mentioning Vincent Kompany. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. And the transfer business it's been good in terms of incomings. There's been a lot of people leaving though. Some people I've been surprised to see leave, such as Nathan Collins. He is a very good defender, don't get me wrong, and he will play for a top 6 team one day, a top 14 one day, in my opinion. You can save that. I genuinely believe he will play in the Champions League. But I felt that, not that he owed it us, because you don't owe anybody anything in football. That it's just a myth that fans have. But I felt like he'd only really played, I think he played 19 games last season, might have been less than that. He didn't play that many games for us, and he only broke into the team because of Ben Mee's injury towards the end of last season. So I thought, if it wasn't for that Ben Mee injury, for example, and we still went down, which I don't think we would have done, to be fair, if Ben Mee weren't injured, he wouldn't have been sold because nobody would have known how good he were. But then again, on the last day of the season, he were daft, with the handball. I don't know if you've all seen it. Obviously, the ball comes over, he throws his hand at it, handball, penalty to Newcastle. They're 1-0 up within 5 minutes, and we've got a mountain to climb. So there's been some players leaving that I'm surprised at, some players leaving that I'm not so surprised at. Tarker, Pope, still surprised Ben Mee decided not to go, not to stay, sorry, and he's playing at Brentford now. But in terms of incomings, I'm pretty happy with them. We seem to be signing young, resellable assets, which I think is without the Premier League money, that's the way you've got to go. We've got a lot of high earners off the wage bill, so that job's already done. There's a few left. McNeil, Cornet, I think will go before the transfer window shuts, but as it stands, it's looking like he'll still be here against Huddersfield, which is good, but not good for you, obviously. So it's one of them. We bring in some inexperienced players in at the back door, which worries me. But Vincent Kompany said he's going to want to play out from the back, which is another thing we're going to have to get used to as fans. So I am a little bit worried about the inexperience, but they're going to get experience and they're going to become resellable assets. Scott Twine, we'll definitely make a profit on him. CJ Egan-Riley, he sounds like he's going to be a very, very good footballer when he's a little bit older. He's only 19 at the minute. Harewood Bellis, of course, is on loan, but he's decent, to be fair. He's Harewood Bellis. He's the England under-21 captain. He's played for Stoke. He's played for another team in East Lancashire, whose name I won't mention. So he's got championship experience. It's just next to him is my worry at the back. So we've got him, and who else we're going to play next to him? Because I don't think Kevin Long's good enough. I don't think McNally's good enough yet. I don't think CJ Riley is good enough yet. So I would like us to bring in another centre-back with a bit more experience and a striker. We need another striker because at the minute we've got Jay Rodriguez and Ashley Barnes up top. And Scott Twine, obviously, but I haven't seen much about him. So I don't know too much about him. He played well in League One last season, and I think he got League One Player of the Year, actually. So he's obviously got something about him, but it's a step up, so we'll see. But I'd like a prolific striker coming in and an experienced centre-back. But let's be honest, that sounds easy. It sounds easier said than done, doesn't it? So it's one of them. Key player, again, difficult to say because they don't know who's going to leave and who else is going to come in. It could be Maxwell Cornet, but I'm going on the basis that he's leaving. So I'm going to say Dwight McNeil. He's been poor last 2 seasons. I think he got 0 goals and assists last season. Well, he had a breakout season a few years ago, and he was sensational. He scored a winner against West Ham. He scored a winner against Wolves. He was taking players on for fun. And then Dyche just coached it all out of him. That was Dyche's main problem. He didn't like forward-thinking players, and players always had to come back and defend, and that was the main mentality. Whereas I think he'll thrive under Vincent. I think he will in a more attacking style, getting behind the front two, and I think he'll do really, really well. So I'm going to go Dwight McNeil. But again, there's rumours that Newcastle are interested in him. So it depends. He might not be here come the end of the transfer window. But we'll see. As I said earlier, my name's Joe. I'm from Burnley Podcast and YouTube channel Turfcast Podcast. Just go and give us a subscribe if you want. I'm going to actually speak to the lads it's Matt, isn't it? I'm going to speak to Matt from Takes That Chance now as soon as I send this and ask him if he'll come on and do a preview. So fingers crossed we get that sorted.
Right, guys, thanks to Turfcast for giving us an update on Burnley. Transfer-wise, Burnley have completely triggered me this season, Dave, because they are pretty much signing everybody I wanted Huddersfield to sign about 2 months ago. Scott Twine in particular, Ian Matson, Luke McNally, Josh Cullen were all on my hit list. Mostly, I will caveat that we're saying mostly if Huddersfield Town got promoted. But, when Burnley are signing these, you just kind of go, that'd have been really nice. So I think the business Burnley has done incoming has been pretty good. Josh Cullen in particular, I think he's going to be a key player. I think he's a smashing player. He's been in Belgium, Irish international, and they've lost a lot of experience in Ben Mead, Tarkowski, Nick Pope, etc. And Nathan and Collins was a really good centre-back that they've lost as well to Wolves. But I think they've got a good leader in Josh Cullen. And yeah, I think he'll slot in really nicely alongside Josh Brownhill as well. I think that could be a really good combination that they've got going on in midfield. They've still got Dwight McNeil in there as well, who had a bit of a dip last season, but he could come again. He's very talented. And Burnley are a very interesting outfit, and they haven't finished yet. They've been linked with Callum O'Hare from Coventry as well. So I think Burnley seem to be having a real go at bouncing back. There are maybe some shades of Bournemouth last year, whereby I think they maybe have a look and think the first attack is going to be our best attempt to do so with the most parachute money. They brought in Vincent Kompany as well. It's a huge name, and it's allowed him to bring in a couple of players maybe that they maybe wouldn't have done ordinarily. They've got Howard Bellis from Man City as well, who's a decent centre-back, had a good spell at Stoke last year. Is Vincent Kompany any good as a manager? I guess we'll see. He seems to be improving at Anderlecht before he left, so it's going to be interesting to see how the big man gets on. Very likeable character as well, isn't he, Vincent Kompany? Very intelligent guy. But I think what's interesting about Burnley is, and I think everybody's made a lot of this, is the debt owed to ALK Capital, whereby there's supposed to be a clause, wasn't there, on relegation where 65 million becomes payable. So whether that debt is payable or serviceable at the minute, we're not entirely sure. But like I said earlier, I think this is pretty much a Bournemouth last season for Burnley, whereby they look to be throwing quite a lot of money on it to bounce back straight away. And I would say if they don't, then maybe there's trouble ahead. But, they seem to be making a good fist of it and making some good moves at the minute. So odds-wise, they're fourth favourites to go up at 4-1 and 19th favourites to go down. Prediction-wise, we'll come on to you guys in just a moment. But for me, I think they've rolled the dice. And it's not a particularly strong-looking championship, I don't think, this year in terms of the top end. In terms of, I don't think you can pick 3 teams definitely that will finish top 3 like maybe you have done in previous years. But I think they'll be in and around the top 6. I do think they'll have a dip at some point. Maybe they'll have that excitable start and then dip. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they respond to that dip, whether they panic, whether the pressure ramps up. And so I think that's going to be the key moment for Burnley and how they deal with that. There's a very good chance that they could be this season's West Brom, whereby it all looked good and then all of a sudden it fell off a cliff. But I think they've got a good enough group of players there to make a bit of a fist of the top 6 challenge. So, Dave, you look like you had lots to say on Burnley, so I'm going to come to you first and see what you think.
I think the thing about Burnley is looking at how Vincent Kompany set his team up in Belgium. They are recruiting for exactly what he wants, and I think I think they've got a collection of very good players there now. I think they've got a decent manager who needs to adapt a little bit to the Championship, but will probably be okay. I can't really see anything other than promotion, if I'm brutally honest, because their budget. You were talking about the debt, but the the long and short of it is it's a little bit of the Mike Ashley approach to the Championship, in that they know they have to plough money in because they simply can't afford to have 3 years in the Championship, even with the parachute payments. So not only are they recruiting well, I expect them to probably bring in a couple more before the transfer window closes. And I would also expect, if they're there or thereabouts, them to recruit in January as well, which is exactly what Bournemouth did to try and make sure they got over the line. So I just can't see anything other than finishing in one of those top 2 slots. And I think they're at the point now where I look at their recruitment and I look at their squad and a couple of other things, and I think anything less than the top 2 arguably is failure.
Tom?
Exactly what Dave said. I think it's the same. It does ring that kind of Bournemouth feeling, and it is like, I thought that with Bournemouth, if they hadn't gone up automatic last season, in my opinion, that their squad was good enough to finish in that top 2, and they did. Especially if they somehow keep hold of Corney. I mean, it sounds like Everton and Fulham interested in him, but if they kept hold of him, then blooming it, I'd say they're going to win the league, to be honest. What a squad they've got. It's going to be interesting seeing how Company manages in the Championship, though. So that could kind of be the spanner in the works. But I think top 2 for me.
Yeah, I think that's the question mark for me, just about Company. I know he was he didn't have the best start at Anderlecht when he was playing manager, but he seemed to be improving and learning all the time. He's a young coach, but I think what's really impressed me about their business is normally when a big team like returns to the Championship after getting relegated, they might just go for names, but they've actually gone through really smart additions like Howard Bellis, one of you guys touched on there, I think proved himself at Stoke. Scott Twine is obviously an incredibly exciting player. And Josh Cullen, you touched on that. I just think it's smart business. And yes, they might have lost Tarkowski and me and Nick Pope, but I just think that squad's really strong, and it should. I've had him down to go up automatically, second if he had to push me. But I think the only thing is his Company in that transition. But again, I think he's he's a smart guy, and it'd be interesting to see how he gets to grip with this league. But I think it's. I agree with Dave. Really, if they don't get automatics, I think it's a failure. Really, I can't see him finishing any lower than 6, to be honest. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they went straight back up.
That's it for Burnley. If you agree or disagree, let us know in the comments, and also keep an eye out for our prediction game this season, and get involved and see if you can beat the likes of Matt Glennon and Richard Kosmala. And that's it for Burnley. So catch you next time.